Hello, good morning and a very warm welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios right here in Dawson Road in Colombo. And joining me this morning is former diplomat and senior journalist Bandula Jayasekara. Very good morning to you, Bandula.
For us.
And we were also due to be joined this morning by a former film star and current politician, Geeta Kumarasinghe. Unfortunately, Miss Kumarasinghe has overslept and neglected her duties
As a parliamentarian,
and she has not turned up at our studios. We have not quite been put out, but nevertheless, I would venture to say that Geeta Kumarasinghe is a very good example of a bad politician. And what are your thoughts? I mean, she would have been here, between us here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
No, but I thought she's a very irresponsible politician. She seems to be fighting a case, of some dual citizenship. I don't think she deserves to be a parliamentarian. This is what I feel.
Indeed.
Because she has a responsibility to us as a TV station, but more than to that for our viewers. Because I think you paid a glowing tribute to her last morning. Maybe that's the problem for us.
Well, I mean, I shan't do this again. I shan't give advance notice of anyone coming on the show. Because we simply can't take that chance.
But for us, we have given and people had honored their commitment. So this is the whole issue. So people have a responsibility, because how can people depend on their parliamentarians? They are supposed to represent the people. How can they solve their problems?
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about dual nationality, why is she in Parliament? I mean, didn't they bring this rule so that certain elements could be kept out of Parliament?
Yeah, I really wouldn't know. I mean, that's the case I think she's fighting, but I don't know how many more dual citizens are in Parliament.
Yes. But what strikes me as being odd, Bandula, is that if we cannot have dual citizens in Parliament, then why is it possible to have dual citizens or foreigners serving in government positions?
They should allow that also for us, because that's wrong. I would say it's worse.
The case in point, of course, is the governorship of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Now, we know that Arjuna Mahendran, the governor, is a national of Singapore. And we also know that as the Singaporean rules do not permit Singaporean nationals from taking up another nationality without giving theirs up first. So here we have a situation where the governor of the central bank has been given a work permit to work as a public official. The job of the governor of the central bank is one of a public role. And I think it's disgraceful that a foreigner is being brought in to do this job, a very public job.
An important job.
And an important one, where the governor's signature, for example, is carried on our notes, legal tender.
But I think there's a question about that also, right?
Well, yes, so
who would sign?
That's right, because we wonder what sort of oath Mr. Mahendran would have taken, because had he taken the oath that all public officials in this country are obliged to take, then he would be at odds with the oath taken in Singapore.
But for us, at least the parliamentarians are elected by the people.
Correct.
So at least
if the people want,
people want them, in despite of their dual citizenship.
Yeah.
But still, I would say it's a bad example today for her, unable to have to be announced. I mean,
that's right.
In fact, I'll be honest with you, I'm very sorry that we had to announce that about the guest today at a hallowed place like the Independence. I really regret that, to be very honest with you.
Indeed, yes. It shows the height of irresponsibility. It shows how little regard these politicians in the likes of Geeta Kumarasinghe have for the general public, the very people who voted her into office.
Is it also only something to do with the ladies, or about the former president Chandrika Kumaratunge,
she was a serial latecomer, wasn't she?
Serial latecomer, something new which I've learned today for us.
Well, it's we like coining various terms.
She kept George Bush Sr. waiting, she kept Clinton waiting when they came, so she kept everybody waiting.
She kept everyone waiting. I wonder if she kept her friends waiting too.
I wouldn't know that. I'm sure you have friends in high places, you would know that better.
Well, we won't talk about that today, but yes, it's important. These politicians who keep people waiting for hours on end, it simply is a waste of resources, everyone's resources.
But for us, people should really pressurize them. So I remember when the former president, okay, she gets late, then she comes and she smiles and people try to forget it. We shouldn't do that. You cannot do that in India. They will, even journalists, everybody, they'll pull them up. If a politician comes, I have gone for several media conferences in India even as a journalist, they won't tolerate that. And if they go on also, those Indian journalists will say, okay, let's stop, it's time up, let's stop.
Yeah.
They don't want, so that's what we should put pressure on all these people. Even the media should why should we wait for 2 hours for some politician to come for a press conference?
That's right, and especially because these politicians have got they've got security, which actually in this day and age where there is abundantly there is no real danger to their life and their person, their security, their forward vehicle is merely to clear the roads and to get from A to B as quick as they can.
And most of them have nothing to do as politicians or as ministers.
Indeed. Well, this is the other thing. We must find them something to do. But everything is not all that bad. In spite of the Geeta Kumarasinghe non-appearance, which should have been here, I must tell you this. Last evening, or last morning, a vessel, MT Avant-Garde, which is the floating armory that was being used in the Red Sea and owned by, operated by a Sri Lankan company, sailed to the what we call the OPL Galle, the outer port limits of Galle Harbour. Now, originally they were denied permission to enter Galle Harbour because the harbour master was not happy with the paperwork in terms of the cargo, and the cargo included approximately 800 pieces of weapons, and on those grounds the harbour master refused the vessel entry. So the vessel then moved on towards Colombo, where on its way, en route, it was intercepted by the Sri Lankan Navy, and there was some consternation on the part of the Sri Lankan Navy because of the weapons on board. There was approximately 800 pieces, and that the paperwork wasn't in order. That is what the Sri Lankan Navy perceived at the time. So the hapless vessel had to make contact with the Ministry of Defence. I spoke some hours later, last night, to the new Defence Secretary, Mr. Karunasena Hettiarachchi, and it was remarkable for his frankness and his openness and for his approachability.
This is really, for us, this is it's an exclusive story.
It is. It's an
breaking news, I would say.
It is an absolutely exclusive story because Mr. Karunasena hasn't given a statement before. And last night, as we were leaving a function, I took the opportunity to sort of doorstep him, which we wouldn't have been able to do with the former Defence Secretary or in the former regime. However, having doorstepped him and got him at his car, and I asked him what's happening in Galle, and he said, let me tell you about Galle. He said, Faraz, Galle was a mistake on the part of the Ministry of Defence. It was our mistake, and we have now resolved it. We have taken control of the weapons on board. They are under the care of the Sri Lankan Navy, and the vessel has been given permission to carry on, turn around and go back to Galle. And so the matter ends there. My point being that the Defence Secretary today in this new era has been open and man enough to admit that there was some breakdown in procedure at the Ministry of Defence. And so what could have been some very contentious story is not contentious at all.
I think it's always we really should learn to say sorry, to forgive. I think these things are important for us, for us to progress as a nation.
Indeed. Yes, especially to be able to say, well, look, I'm sorry, this is what happened.
But also for us, I met some high-ranking Navy officers recently at a function, and they were saying on this avant-garde that the Sri Lankan Navy, I mean, they benefited. Like, see, they earned just for the country, for the government, before this avant-garde came into operation.
That's right.
That was something the country benefited. But whereas with this avant-garde, the private sector benefited. It's a private company where they did lots of welfare work through this money that they received for the country.
That's right. Yes. The thing is that what was being done by the naval forces, the Sri Lankan Navy, was transferred into a company that was registered under the Companies Act, Rakna Raksha, and they became a government-owned company. But what was unusual was the nature of the contracts that they entered into with this company called Avant-Garde, in which many sovereign matters were de facto passed on to Avant-Garde.
But that company also hired lots of former Navy officers.
That's right,
yes. The former Navy commander, Somatilaka Disanayake, was taken as advisor.
That's right.
Das Handagiri. They recruited all these people, but high-ranking officers, not much of the juniors.
But we're not taking issue with that. But what we do take umbrage over is the fact that you cannot possibly delegate the sovereign powers to some other outfit. A series of, I think, 6 agreements, and then another one encompassing all those 6 agreements. We went in the 7th agreement. And however, our sources reveal that the government of Sri Lanka, the Ministry of Defence, are renegotiating these contracts so as to provide a level playing field not only to Avant-Garde but to all the other players in this industry that provides many jobs and lots of hard-earned dollars. But one of those things in that agreement was the right to train would-be sea marshals and in Sri Lanka, and part of that training included training on the use of weapons, which is absolutely incredible that a private company could be given this task. It conjures up all sorts of possibilities. We could have IS people coming here to obtain training, and then when they are captured, they may venture to say that they got their training in Sri Lanka.
That is also why during the time of terrorism, where they didn't give the private sector to operate the helicopters and all. It's the same thing. They had fear, so only Air Force operated, and then they opened up. So this should have been renegotiated later, after terrorism ended.
Now, of course, now the government is entering into renegotiating through their private company. When I say private, it's constituted as a private company under the Companies Act, but the shares are all owned by the Treasury Secretary on behalf of the people of the country. So that's good news that they are renegotiating it. Perhaps the Ministry of Defence will make public the terms of the new contracts that they will enter into with Avant-Garde. So we look forward to being kept abreast of all that information.
And I think we have the right to information. I think this should bring a complete change.
Indeed.
And tell the world, because people want answers to these things.
Last night, Bandula, this is another exclusive.
I know, because I told you have friends in high places. I know what's coming for us.
We noticed that at a function that the President, Sirisena, arrived there with very little fanfare. There was barely any noticeable security. I'm sure there was, but it wasn't so noticeable and in your face. And President Sirisena arrived there on time and took his place, and there was no hullabaloo. It was all fine. We did notice that Mr. Nimal Siripala arrived quite late, and he lost his place at the head table. He was provided another table, but later on we did notice that there was animated discussion between Nimal and His Excellency the President. I wonder, Bandula, what they discussed.
To improve transport system of this country.
Perhaps that's
why
why
he was asking Nimal Siripala not to fall asleep. He has a record of falling asleep. We have seen at press conferences in the parliament, we have seen that maybe he told him, don't fall asleep, don't come late.
Well, that's another thought, isn't it? But it's interesting that these politicians meet in such places, and we did notice that we won't mention and embarrass them by telling you how many of them arrived considerably late, very much later than His Excellency the President did. Of course, talking about transport, the President was the one who lived closest to that hotel, but I'm told he doesn't live there. Tell me, Bandula, tell me about what you perceive is the way that now people like the Canadian government, how will they perceive Sri Lanka now that this UN resolution has been passed by consensus? What do you think? How will
they haven't really made a very clear statement for us, but they are saying, okay, they say things have improved, that's what they are saying. But I have my own views, because see, they were always like a place like Canada were looking at their interests. They were pandering to their voters. So it's very difficult for them to pass judgment on us, because they have, Harper has his own problems. You know, the liberals and the conservatives, they have that. That's all they want to get elected. Where the present Prime Minister, he's trying to make inroads in Ontario, where we have a considerable Sri Lankan Tamil population. That's what. So they play politics with the Sri Lankan system. That is really what they are doing. But it's good to be open, it's good to reach out, that I agree. We have to have friends. We are a small country, we cannot afford to have enemies. We got to ask and get help from everybody. That's important. There's no harm reaching out. That's diplomacy.
Indeed. Talking about diplomacy and so on, and troubles, I noticed that the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, is in some form of, I don't know about hot water, but he's certainly in some sort of warm water. And that comes on the back of a story carried out by BuzzFeed yesterday, that the Conservative Party had accepted a substantial donation totaling approximately £1.6 million sterling from a company that hadn't paid its UK taxes for 3 or 4 years. And that company, in particular company, was as an offshore company registered in Portugal under their offshore facilities. Now, what was interesting was that the owner of that company that made the donation is of Sri Lankan extract. But what was interesting, for a company that hadn't paid taxes, corporate taxes, for 3 or 4 years in Britain, its owner was listed as being worth £160 million by the Sunday Times Rich List, which is the sort of...
Who is he? What's his name? Can you mention
I don't want to mention his name at the moment for legal reasons, but it is a telling indictment on that political party and their fundraisers.
Some of these people, for us, they take the holier than thou approach, which is wrong. I mean, we have our faults, we have our good things,
that's right,
which they always try to blame just because we are a poor small country.
Yes,
which is wrong. So let's see how they would, react. But they will have always some answer. Now, take even this recent attack, the MSF, attack that hospital.
Yes.
The US will have something to say.
Yes.
That is what, whereas we small poor countries are paying the price. That is what is wrong.
Yes, I think what was important in that incident, the MSF incident, was that the US came straight in and blamed it on collateral damage. And
they always do that. They've always done it. They'll continue to do that. But they know, if you look at it, they are the masters of propaganda. We have to learn from them, which we haven't learned from them. It's important to learn these things.
But the previous government tried a bit to dabble in propaganda. And they hired all these people, firms in the United States and in Britain. But all those transactions are now being investigated. By this
that didn't work. So, but the important thing is to train. We should have a diplomatic school, train our people, and there should be less political interference. We have some good officials, good diplomats. Let them do it like other countries. Like India, the officials do a very good job. Let them do it.
And Bandula, you were in the diplomatic service, and you obviously had a rather generous expense account, did you?
No, it was not a generous.
It was.
We were really, see, if you really want to entertain, we had to use our money. It was something, see, that is where the politicians, we have seen them coming to these countries, they go to town, they spend so much. But it was very difficult even to get $10 approved. So things were not easy for them, but we had to represent the country. It was very difficult. It was really, nothing was reviewed. It was not generous as people made it out to be.
I see. So you wouldn't have had the opportunity then to have $400 shots of brandy or whatever.
Definitely, I don't take brandy, but we didn't have that.
If you had that inclination.
No, never, didn't have. But see, it was important to represent the country with honor, to give them, like with the culture, art, or whatever to represent. But it was very difficult. So the problem for us was where the politicians were using those monies and didn't look at all these things. I'm sure lots of people have different country, like depends on the country. But that was not there. So we were sent to, and these things. But also I must tell you, certain very strong political diplomats, very strong, they had all the support. I'm not scared to mention, one in Russia who served in Russia, or one in Washington. They had, whereas we had to wait 2-3 months to get $10 approved. So that's wrong. So we got to change the whole structure, the whole system.
And do you think that this it augurs well that we have at the helm of the foreign ministry, Mangala Samaravira?
Yeah, I would say that he's doing a good job as the foreign minister after Lakshman Kadiragama. He's doing a good job, whereas others, I'm telling you, the likes of Professor G.L. Pires, of course, he went around lecturing the world. He thought the diplomats, everybody were his students, university students. He lectured them, and he was only worried about getting his photograph photoshopped, when it was grey hair, he was very disappointed. And he used the public affairs, public communication division as his thing. That was wrong. But whereas I would say Mangala is doing a good job. Not Bogolagama, not G.L. Pires. Mangala is doing it. Let's give the devil his due.
And it appears that he is, because we hardly hear of any controversy. So he must be silently progressing, or without any sort of interference.
It looks like. So that's what he's doing. I think our colleague, Shamir Rasuldin, who was in India, he was telling me, he saw the public relations he had. So which has to be admired, because they have to represent the country. And we really should support them. But if they are wrong, we should also, we are the real opposition, as we discussed yesterday.
Indeed, we are.
We should bring it up.
We do. We should highlight these matters. Let's talk about the police a little bit. What do you think? What is your perception? Do you think they're doing a good job?
No, definitely not. Look at that 17-year-old child. How he was, assaulted brutally. Nothing has happened. Look at that disabled man who was assaulted in some village. Nothing. They said, look, he was under the influence of liquor. What's happening to this? They have a responsibility, which they are not doing enough. Like yesterday, we had a discussion with Dr. Hiranthi Wijayaman, and she said, they need support. IGP Lanka has a good reputation, but it has come down.
He may have a good reputation. However, last afternoon I was made aware of a case. A foreigner actually told me this story, and it appeared to be that the police in Mount Lavinia, where this foreigner had taken up temporary residence while being in Sri Lanka, the police at Mount Lavinia were far from being fair and equitable and applying the rules as they should have been. And so I said to this foreigner that he should write a letter to the IGP and go and see him personally, because he's at his tether's end with the police in Mount Lavinia.
And did you tell him that he should copy to MTV? And
I told him that he should copy the complaint to MTV. We have these various programs here. You Report, I think, is another one. And I did tell him that if he did that, then there would be someone, somewhere in this organization who would investigate and look at the merits of these stories.
And also for us now, yesterday and the previous week, we have announced in our programs, Newsline and Pathikada, to respond, and people are responding. People are coming with files, people are calling and writing to us.
Indeed.
So they seem to be having faith in us because there's lots of grievances. So we are the people's channel. So
that's right.
That's sad in one way, but they say, look, please help us. Yesterday we got a call on some transfers. They said, can you bring it up?
Yes.
This is what is happening today.
It is very, in one way, it's sad that the public have to rely on a broadcaster more than they do with officialdom.
With the police as well as the opposition,
yes.
The MPs,
yes.
They want a voice.
Indeed. We of course, as a channel, we can't possibly help it if the public place more faith in us than they do with the rest of officialdom. What can we do? We can't stop people sending us emails and mail and so on. Yesterday when we were broadcasting from Independence Square live, a chap came along and said to me, is this the program that goes on Sirasa? And I said, yes it is. He said, it's wonderful, it's amazing. And he stood there and he watched your show virtually live. Because,
and your show too. Well, yes. Today the island is carrying a page one story on what we discussed. They have carried, so people are carrying on this because we remembered the Miriabad incident,
indeed. The
landslide. So they are carrying. They have interviewed certain people and they are carrying that.
Indeed, indeed. So before we wrap up, we perhaps may want to tell our viewers that we plan on visiting Jaffna and doing Newsline live from Jaffna.
In front of the library.
In front of the Jaffna Library, which has its own special significance for more reasons than one. And our producer, he's single, isn't he? So he may have not have.
He might have to be single very soon.
Right. Well,
he might have to be single.
We'll have to leave it to him to sort these the arrangements out.
Newsfirst or his wife.
Well, indeed. But that'll be an interesting proposition. Going to Jaffna.
Jaffna and I think all Fort. I mean, we have lots of ideas to go out and take it to the people because then they'll see us, and really respond to their problems.
I'd like very much also, Bandula, to go up country and do this amongst the tea estates, because the tea workers there, the estate workers, they do have rather a hard life, They're paid 450 rupees net per day. In exchange for that, they need to pluck about 20 kilos of tea leaf. And they need to work, and their living quarters is awful. And the plantation companies say that they are losing money, but that is not reflective when I travel abroad and I see all these Ceylon tea brands in the supermarkets abroad. And there appears to, in my mind, to be rather a mismatch.
And these people are doing a great job, morning till late. They're really suffering and they're helping our country and our economy. We really should recognize us. We really should do that as a tribute for us.
Indeed, and certainly the tea estate workers, the tea pluckers, deserve far more than 11,250 rupees for 19 days or 20 days continuous work. We'll keep you posted on those matters. Bandula, thank you very much for being here. We don't have to thank Geeta because she's not here. She should have been here.
We tell her no thank you because in fact I got a call at 6:32 from her.
And you declined.
And I declined. In your presence I declined because I have nothing to do.
You also unfriended her from Facebook.
Yes, that's
well done, well done.
You should do that too, Faraz.
I don't have her on my Facebook. So that's...
You have been diplomatic, you don't want to say about it.
No, but
I'll give the benefit of the doubt, Faraz.
Right, so we'll leave you on this little note. Never look down to test the ground before taking your next step. Only he who keeps his eyes far on the far horizon will find the right road. On that basis, we shall leave you. Wish you a very good morning and God bless.